Hi and welcome to the Distributed Monkey Engine for VMware. Let me show you through our 5 primary workflows. Our monitoring workflow that deals with problems requiring your immediate attention. Our maintenance workflow so that you can make sure that resources are allocated to where they can do the most good. Our current capacity workflow so that you can see just how much more you can fit in the existing environment and infrastructure. Our forecast workflow so that you can see when and how much more resource you'll require. And our comparison workflow so that you can see how your environment compares with those of your peer group. Without further ado, let me start to show you them in more detail. Let's start with the check one. Our monitoring workflow allows you to check at a glance what's going on in your environment. You can see how things are performing, you can see what alarms pertain to your infrastructure, and you can check different parts of the infrastructure to see what's going on as a whole. Let's have a look at one of these alarms, because our alarms are a little different from most. You can see clearly how long the problem has existed for, what's impacted, what the problem actually is, and what you might do about it. If the problem doesn't need your immediate attention, in other words, if it can wait a few days, it doesn't get surfaced as an alarm in this tool. We use other mechanisms for telling you about those things. Let's go and have a look at some of those now. Our maintenance workflow allows you to look for things that can actually do with fixing. They might be configuration matters, or they may be over or under allocation of resources or the redeployment of them. Again, we pick our thing that we're interested in our environment. We choose what we want to do from the many scans that we have available, and then click the Scan Now button. When we've done this, we end up with the result set that you can see below. You can see our unique DME index, which tells you which ones are of most benefit to you. Most important thing to do, in fact. That's a combination of the confidence, which is mostly about how much data and the pattern of data that we have. The impact, or if you like, the benefit in cost terms to you, and the amount of effort that would be required to do this. For each of the scans we provide a clear recommendation as to what you might go and do about it. You can see that we have a large number of scans available, and we're adding to this all the time. There you are. Let's go and have a look at the next of our workflows. Let's look at our current available capacity. So for a particular ESX host that I've chosen out of my things to examine, let's pick a type of workload. I'm not really sure what sort of workload I'm going to run, but let's say that it's going to be an average one. I wonder how many more virtual machines like our average we can actually fit. Click on the thing we want, and we wait a short while it goes away and calculates and does the analysis behind the scenes for us. So here, once we've got the analysis, we can see for each of the core resources, in this case CPU, how many we already have, what we're consuming. Our average workload is clearly somewhat larger than the existing workloads on that particular ESX one, because it's the average across our entire environment, and we can fit 19 more. We can see here that we can only fit 5 for memory, but of course some of these values may be quite fairly similar, so in order to avoid you having to actually work out which is the burst bottleneck you'll encounter, you can see clearly at the bottom that we show you. In this case we can fit 5 more, and our first bottleneck is memory. Of course this is interesting to us, but we'd need to share this information quite regularly with somebody else. So you can see our report on this feature, which you will have noticed on each of the screens. And we'll click on that. This produces a PDF file, which in this case we'll keep. And we'll select a moment so you can see it. And you can see here we have a report which looks remarkably like the screen we were just viewing, which we can now share with other people as we require. Let's get rid of that. We also have a large number of facts and out-of-the-box reports which allow us to look at other forms and aspects of our capacity. Let's go and have a look at some of the other things we can do. Our predict and forecast workflow allows you to select an aspect of your environment that you want to look at, see the recent trends in consumption of resource, and predict and forecast out the point at which you'll run out and require more. In this case, you can see we have 40 days until we run out of CPU resources. Let's go and look at another of our workflows. Our peer comparison workflow isn't just about idle curiosity. It's about understanding the trends in the wider VMware environment and community. What this allows us to do is to look at ourselves and assess how we're doing relative to that community, and from that question ourselves about whether we're doing something so different that we should explain to the wider world, or whether there's some reason why we're not maybe quite as good as the wider community. Is there some justifiable reason there for why we're different? And from that we can learn whether or not we need to do something new ourselves and adapt, or whether or not we're doing well enough that we can leave things alone. You can see we can compare by size of environment and across a different number of metrics. All of these have the same sort of formats. You have a you versus the community, and you can see whether you're doing better or worse on a rough gauge. And that, in a nutshell, is what the DME is all about. Monitoring, maintaining the environment and fixing those things that make it go better, examining and planning for current capacity, predicting and forecasting future needs, and comparing with the community. Thanks for listening.